morning, good morning, good morning. I want to make sure you can hear me this morning. If you can, put a 1 in the chat for me, please. If you can hear me this morning, put a 1 in the chat.
Good morning.
Good morning. This morning, we're going to start with chapter 4, basic learning styles and principles. We've had a lot of this chapter building up. So I think we're going to move swiftly through. This is our basic teaching skills for career education instructors, chapter 4. If you have not already seen your email, I've already sent the study guide for chapter 4 through 6. And that's how we're going to progressively move this week, okay? So looking at the critical concept for a master educator, this chapter says traditional academia has taught in ways that appeal to basically two intelligence. So they've taught for verbal, linguistic, and logical mathematics. A master educator will, however, deliver content in a manner that reaches all intelligence and allows learners to use their full brain power. So the key of where you come in, where you change, where every educator becomes accountable to their learner, accountable to their audience, this is where you come in. It says a master educator will, however, we know what they've done before, but a master educator will, however, deliver content in a manner that reaches all intelligence. That's our job. Our job is not to present the same, not present the norm, because everybody is going to learn differently. Not saying it's a heck of a job, and I got it. Each individual student. Let me tell you, each individual student has to walk away feeling like you've catered to them, that they've learned something. Okay. And that can only happen if we step outside of our box or normality. All right. So we got to be able to reach them how they learn. We got to allow them to use their full brain, not just give them the appetizer. We got to have to give them the appetizer, the entree, get them the dessert. So again, I tell educators too, in 2025, this is not the time. This is not the time for people to get into this career time. This is a retirement plan. You're not going to relax over here, all right? Because you're always going to be called to the forefront. I don't know what educator trainings were back in the day, but that's not what we're doing today. And I hope and I pray that you're getting something that equips you to take it up a notch, okay? And every time you learn something, you should be going up a notch. So even though verbal, linguistic, or logical, mathematical has been, the map, the plan back in the day, but today we're asking you to identify, touch those learning intelligence of your learners, and then take your lesson and just add some different quirks to it. And you build it up to be your own. And before you know it, you've increased your retention, which means students are coming to school. They're probably coming to school online. And I remember one time I could not get them to go home. Okay, I could not get them to go home. All right, as we get ready to go over, let's look at our desired performance goals for this chapter. Our desired performance goals for this chapter, you're going to be able to list 4 important steps in learning. You're going to explain 8 distinct intelligence and how they impact learning. You're going to list the benefits of identifying learning styles for students. You're going to, and then here's the thing too. We've already had this. This should be easy. This should come back. It should come back and be able to now, as you're going over the information, you should be able to flow with it. And you should be able to identify some learners in your own family, in your own classroom, in your own salons, on top of when you get into the classroom. You should be identifying at this point. I always tell master educators, you got to know how you learn first before you're going to teach somebody. Okay? Got to be able to relate. The master educator, you're going to consider the 4 important steps in learning into each key lesson. So as you are writing your lesson plan, there are some things you have to keep keep at the forefront. So we're not going to copy and paste. Okay? Yes, they left a blueprint, but you have to remember each lesson, each student learns differently, and you don't know who's going to be sat in your classroom. So it should be tweaking of those lesson plans every time we go around. Okay. Determine their student learning style and teach to them. Something in your lesson has to gravitate towards the student's learning style. Okay. Incorporates a variety of delivery methods into class session. The delivery method is you got it. Okay. How am I get it to them though? You got it. They're ready to receive. But you may have to alternate how you give it to them. It's your delivery. Okay. And a delivery is continued practice. It's an experience. It's a continued practice. Let's look at our role of an educator. You are the facilitator of learning. You're the head honcho. You're the leader. Okay. You are the one responsible for their learning. It is no passing a buck when you're an educator. You are the leader in the classroom. You're responsible for everything, although you may have different duties. You may have other individuals with duties, but you're responsible for what goes on in that classroom. So you are the facilitator of learning. You initiate learning. I've had students who also play leadership roles in their own careers. I've had students who this is not their first rodeo. And so when it's something came up that they knew how to do, you would find them oftentimes, chiming in, and that's amazing. But oftentimes you also may find them trying to take the leadership role. I need every learner to know who's the leader in the classroom. The educator. I am the leader. Learning is facilitated through me. Learners are not going to pay their tuition to learn from students. Our job is to facilitate learning, to identify leadership in that classroom. Okay? How do we facilitate learning? We got our lesson plans together. We got our daily plans together. At what time are we doing this? Okay? When we let go of the reign of leader in the classroom, now the students have multiple leaders. They don't know who to follow. Okay? And so I want you to always maintain leadership. Same thing is we need to know who is, when we walk into a classroom, who's the teacher. That's why teachers have a different uniform than students. Okay, the facilitator of learning. The role of the educator is the learning catalyst. A catalyst is something that's rapid at heart. It works fast. It's a hyper engine. Okay? You are the one that brings everything together. You build foundations. You're the learning catalyst. You bring relevant information in. Okay? Learning styles are defined as the role of the educator. So you're observing and you evaluate the students. You know how they learn. Analytical presentation style. Okay? That's the role of the educator. How you deliver it is going to be very important. The learning style profiles. These are format and comparable styles. When you are preparing to teach a class, there's many things we have to, in one presentation, there's many things we have to identify. Okay. And you got to know that you always got to answer the question, what, why, how. Okay. What if, because you may have students say what if and when's. And then the comparable styles, interactive learners, reader listener learners, systematic learners, intuitive learners. Okay. Intuitive learners, for example, ask what if. They hear you, they get it, but always in the back of their mind, what if you do this? As a master educator, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for anything that's going to come out of your students. Okay. And so I sometimes would tell them, ask me why. After I get through explaining something, now ask me why. And they'll say, why? I am trying to attract the intuitive learner to explain even more. Okay. The intuitive learner is very logical. They just need a little bit more explanation. All right. And based on what you're teaching, you should already have the resources that the school provides. You've read your lesson, you read the book, but also go a little step further and pull some additional resources out. Okay. Go a little bit further and pull that out. Sensory learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Now, this is what we have to look at. They're using the sensory nerves. Okay. Visual, they're going to process information through sight. Okay. These are individuals that show it to me. I got it. I see it one time. I got it. Auditory, they process information out of what they hear. So if you have auditory students, they're going to need you to talk. You can't just play videos. They're going to need you to explain. Okay. They're not processing the information, which means they're not learning unless you speak. Kinesthetic, they process the information about what they do. Sometimes you got to show them. So you can't always have videos. You can't always just talk, but you're going to have to say, come on, it's time for us to touch this man. It's demo time. Okay. So we have students that have all three of these. As an educator and you're teaching a lesson, I need you to make sure I'm showing them. Can you see what I'm talking about? Can they hear the process as I'm talking? And can they do what I'm talking about? Every lesson, every demo, you should be asking yourself, are we providing the sensory learning? Am I providing the sensory learning skills? Is this visual? If I'm teaching finger waves, can they touch it? I want them to feel the product, feel the cone. I want them to practice. Audio, I'm talking them through it. And then visual, they can look at me seeing it. Retaining information. This is what you can be teaching, but this is what a student keeps seeing. 10% of what they read. So we can't give them a lot of reading assignments. You tell them, hey, you read that on your own time. That's what that book is for. You read it on your own time. When they come into the building, you're going to have to teach them. Okay? They retain 20% of what they hear. So you can't lecture them all day. 30% of what they see. All right, now we got something. I'm doing some demos, I'm showing some videos, we see magazines. 50% of what they see and hear. So start reading, hearing, talking, and then letting them see the demo. 70% of what we say and write. Put you some notes on the board as you're teaching. 90% of what we teach. Actually break it down to them. Show them the way. Okay? Take them from 0 to 100. Us walking them through, they're retaining 90% of the information, which means when they get ready to use it in real life, salons and spas, or wherever they're going, they're able to articulate what you taught, and then they're able to actually recall it in their brain. Hold on one moment. All right, excuse me. I had to cough. I didn't want to cough so loud. Let's look at our 4 steps in learning. All right. See what we've checked out. The 4 steps in learning has to be a desire, an input and environment, an assimilation and a repetition. Okay. We have to make sure these steps are matured in our classroom, which means we have to bring the students up. When we start to see these steps, and you've seen them in many places you've been before, it'll become evident to you that in everything we do, we use these steps in learning. Okay. Even your kids now who are learning to see television for the first time, learning a phone or an iPad for the first time, you'll notice the desire, the input and environment. Okay, they're receiving the know-how. It's accessible to them. The assimilation, they're repeating it. The processing the information and then repeat. Okay, this is something we see all the time in our everyday lives. As we look at multiple intelligence, how we are smart versus how smart we are. Intelligence is not fixed or unitary. Intelligence prerequisites. These are the prerequisites to intelligence. Skills to resolve the problem. What are the problems? Ability to create a product. Okay, let me mold you. And potential for finding or creating a problem. Okay, you can listen to your clients all day long. You have to be able to find the issue in order to help them. As an esthetician and an educator, I have a lot of esthetician students. I've had cosmetology students too. But I was talking this yesterday and telling the students it is all about you finding the issue that they have. What problems? Identify the problems so you can provide a solution. Here's your 8 intelligences. Identify your verbal linguistic. And you can identify which one you are too as well. Your verbal linguistic, your bodily kinesthetic, the verbal, you just have to tell me. I just have to hear. I can probably listen with my earphones, my iPod, bodily kinesthetic. I'm listening to you, but I need to do something with my hands. Logical, mathematical. You know what? Give me a task list, give me the directions, and you ain't got to follow around. You ain't got to micromanage me. I'm going to come back to you with it, the list done. Okay. And logical mathematics, sometimes with those individuals, it has to make sense. So these individuals will continuously ask questions. Visual spatial, that means this individual is this is a visionary, but they need to see you do it. They may not like lecture, but they love the hands-on component. Then you have the musical. Always have a little rhythm or something in the background. Okay. Um, and for learners that are study with music, I believe one of the major intelligence, because they're retrieving information and going through the process of learning while there's another rhythm going on in the background. Okay. Very highly intelligent, but they need something to make the process feels like it's going to stick. And so if they don't have something in form of rhythm or musical background, they feel like, oh, it's boring. Okay. And they may lose interest. And then you have interpersonal, intrapersonal. The difference between those, one would love to be assigned to a group for a group assignment, and the other one, I work by myself. All right. And then you have naturalists. This is the individual that connects with nature. Okay. So by just opening up the window and natural sunlight coming in, or having this study session outside, or going for a walk after break, really helps this student learn. As we begin to break down verbal, linguistic, and we're going to break down all the intelligence. We'll probably go for another 5 minutes, but what I want you to do is continue to read and review this chapter. We're going to close it out on Thursday and begin with chapter 5. Okay, so these are characteristics of verbal linguistic. They are word wise, they like words. How they learn best, career choices at famous people, they can recall information. For the verbal linguistic students, this is what's going to help you when you see teaching ideas and activities. These are the activities or teaching ideas that help verbal linguistic students. You're going to see the intelligence, then you're going to see tips on how to teach them right behind it. Okay. These students do well with graphics and posters, slogans, reading, dialogue, okay, word games, mnemonics, affirmations, metaphors, smileys, and paraphrasing. They do great with acronyms, okay? They like to bring things together. Some study tips for these individuals: study groups, reading and highlighting the text. And that's something you've seen us do, or many people do all the time, okay? Rewriting the notes. And as they're writing notes, they're processing learning. Plays are great for them, and debating. They debate the facts. Your visual, these are space-wise. With visual students, a visual intelligence, visual aids are going to be good, hands-on experience. Of course, mind mapping or working, a window pane, which means working, showing your work on the board. Rearranging the classroom and teacher location. So, being up for a change. Redesigning graphics, logos, flyers that can become very artistic. Ball toss reviews. They want to get up. They don't mind studying, and you can switch up the classroom. Dancing and physical energizers. They have a lot of energy, so let's put it into dance. I may have told you guys before, the line dance every morning. Used to do some kind of trendy dance every morning to get everybody going, everybody smiling, get that energy up. Uh, Making collages, mobiles, and timelines. So this person is very project savvy and they can visualize. Okay. Very creative. Here's some study tips for those individuals using graphics, diagrams, like we said, also your highlighters, because you're color coding your notes, organizing your notes from main points to supporting points. Like, what's the key ones I need to work on? Okay. Working with other learners that learn the same, that are also visual, and in group work. Okay. They work well in groups to find the problem and also solve the problem. Okay. Some study tips. We're going to make sure, as far as logical mathematical intelligence, they're logic wise. So it has to make sense to them. They're going to evaluate the information, okay, and then process. Okay. They're going to rely on critical thinking skills. It has to make sense. Sequencing events, conducting experiments. They want to prove. They want to prove, okay? So that means you may have to have a classroom project that gives them some proof. Brainstorming, classifying, organizing, and categorizing. This person would do well in match it. Okay, they would do well in match it evaluations. Synthesizing, learn ideas. So they may have a lot of ideas and they may also put them into different categories. They're great with numbers. They can understand charts and graphs, and they're more of an analysis person. Okay, so very, very good on analysis. Here's some study tips for this intelligence. Quiet. Okay, pausing and pondering. Leave it a moment that they have to think about it. All right, and they may think about it. You got to go back to them. A 1 minute reflection period. All right. So as they're learning, they will take a moment just to reflect. How does this work together? And so calling this person, you're teaching something, calling on this person right after you said something, actually it's not the best idea. This person has to process what you said, and then they're ready to bring everything together to give you an answer. Okay, so this is why sometimes I ask the questions and I just keep going and I come back around, because I know many individuals have to process the information and then, okay, get my words together and then be prepared to present, to speak. Always consider the why, the cause, the effect. Okay, this person will probably be good at journaling, keeping up. Remember categorizing and dictating notes. Interpersonal intelligence, and we're beginning to close out. This person, you can tell them, do your workbook, do your study guide. They connect well with the lesson. Arranging in their research project. So this person does great in research. They can go pull different things out. This person's great in setting goals and priorities. And work on your action plan. It's good for these students to have a choice. So I would not take away their complete choice. I would bring them selected things that we're going to do, and then they will have to choose. Okay. And the scheduling, reflection, and introspection. So this person or this group of people would love to talk about their experience. They want to be quiet. They want to think about it. Okay. They want to recap. Okay. Everybody's not going to recap, but these students are going to want to recap. Okay. Consider the cause and effect, the why moment. They're going to pull their personal experience, ask them to tap into their personal experience and bring it forward. Okay. 2 minutes. Bodily kinesthetic. It's going to be body wise. They are good at role playing, building models, okay, creating simulations. They work well together as a team. They play word games. They can choreographer. Um, you can put them in charge of the energizer or the morning exercise. Okay. They have physical gestures. They're going to stretch. They're going to move around. These individuals I would definitely put to do the motivation in the morning or to do the icebreaker or to be our dance instructor, our fitness instructor. These individuals. All right. You're going to explore study group. They may want to walk around and study, so not necessarily still sit in a chair. They're going to rely on a classmate as a study buddy, peer coaching. Okay. They may learn something from the classmate that breaks it down. So you may be the initial facilitator and then they will come in. Applying material in a practical manner. So what they learn, they're going to take it right in and apply it. And they're going to act out the information, which means what you're teaching them, make sure it's correct because they're going to take it and put it straight to work. Okay. And designing games relevant to the material. You're going to have to be able to connect them to the activities. All right. So whether they're way over on Z, you got to find a way to bring them back around. Okay. And we're going to pause right there. I want you to pick up at interpersonal intelligence, continue reading the rest of this chapter. We'll pick back up on Thursday. I'm going to prepare now for the night for the day crew aesthetics and lash team to come in. And so I'm gonna need just a few minutes to work that. So we did pause a few minutes before time, but yeah, your assignment, let's pick this up in the classroom. And if you have any questions, don't forget to reach out. Okay. Um, Let me stop